It's 10 a.m. Saturday, April 19th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in to our special newscast on the ferry sinking disaster. Live from Seoul, I'm Ojin Ju.
Good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. More disappointment, anger and sorrow from the families of the missing passengers as another day passed with no new survivors found, and more confusion and miscommunication.
4 days have now passed since search and rescue operations began, and hopes are dimming. But families and rescuers are clinging on to the hope that the ferry, now completely submerged, may contain pockets of air that could sustain the missing.
As of now, 29 passengers have officially been confirmed dead and 273 remain missing out of the 476 passengers and crew. For the latest on the ferry sinking and other updates, we have Connie Lee standing by in the newsroom.
Connie, we heard news earlier this morning that divers have spotted bodies inside the hull for the first time since rescue operations began on Wednesday. What's the latest?
Well, just a few hours ago today on Saturday, officials said divers may have found 3 possible bodies inside the 4th floor of the sunken ferry. Now, divers were not actually able to get inside the ship early this morning because they couldn't break through the windows. But officials say they are currently working on it at this time. And we'll be bringing more on that as the updates come in. But in the meantime, there has been a change of the total number of passengers inside that ferry. Now, late Friday, government officials acknowledged that they made a mistake in tallying up the numbers. One more person was added to the total number of passengers, making it 476 people on that ferry and not 475 as originally reported. But the number of rescued has been reduced to 174 from 179. And as you can imagine, this has caused outrage from relatives of those still unaccounted for. And the number of dead is currently at 29. And new this Saturday morning here in Korea, the captain of the ferry and 2 other crew members are in custody right now and have been formally charged. The 68-year-old Captain Lee Jun-seok is charged with 5 violations. This includes charges of negligence and a violation of a ship crew law, which requires crew to remain on the ship until all passengers escape. Now you can finally see his face here. After leaving a court hearing early this morning, the captain spoke to reporters, and here he tells them that he told people to evacuate. Let's hear for ourselves.
퇴선 명령 내리셨어요?
네.
승객들한테도 내리셨어요?
네. 불릴 때 있었던 게 아니라 그 항로를 지시하고 잠시 침실에 볼일에서 잠시 갔다 온 사이에 그렇게 된 겁니다.
And there you hear it, the captain is basically saying it wasn't his fault that the ship had tipped over. And earlier, he clearly said yes, he did tell passengers to evacuate. But as we've continually heard from surviving passengers, they say they never heard those orders. Chinju Mark.
Yes, and Connie, we must understand that under maritime law, the long and short of it is that if the captain is completely responsible for the ship, the safety of the passengers and the actions of the crew.
And it wasn't just the captain facing the law. 2 more crew members were charged and arrested. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, the 2 other crew members who are also in custody is a 25-year-old third mate with the surname Park. Now, he was reportedly at the helm of the ferry when it sank. Now, another crew member is a 55-year-old man of the surname Cho. Now, these people were apparently the first ones to escape the sinking ferry.
Yeah, that's really shocking if true. It is their responsibility to stay on board and oversee an orderly evacuation. And we've heard countless stories from surviving passengers, Connie, that they were even told to stay inside and not move, even putting on their life vests and staying within the confines of the ferry.
That's right, Mark. And actually, there's a new amateur video released today taken by a passenger, which shows people staying put inside their cabins, even though the ship was clearly severely tilted. You see here passengers passing out life vests and some already wearing them. Passengers say they thought about evacuating the ship earlier, but because the announcement from the ship's crew told them to stay put, that's exactly what they did. Now, that's all I have for you right now from the newsroom. Back to you guys, Shinju and Mark.
Thanks, Connie, for that. Now, we now connect live to our UDN, who's at the Pyeongmokhang Harbor, where rescue efforts continue. DN, how are rescue operations going over there?
Hi guys, like Connie just mentioned, the Coast Guard here is trying to get those 3 bodies out of the 4th level from the vessel. They have been going down there trying to break down the windows but have failed to do so, and efforts are continuing as we speak. The Coast Guard also has decided to throw a wire net around the vicinity of the site so that no dead bodies could be drifted away by the current. Now, putting aside the 3 dead victims that we have found today morning, the official death toll stands at 29. The latest victim was found around midnight yesterday, and it was a 60 to 70-year-old female, and she was found drifting afloat around about 150 meters away from the site of accident. Guys?
Yeah, we're just looking at live footage there of the sea, but how have the rescue operations gone throughout the night? Were the rescue team able to get much deeper down into the vessel?
Right, the rescue operations have continued throughout the night and this morning as well. Mid-sized aircrafts were being sent out to the site where they were launching flare bombs to light up the night as well. Now, the divers were also going into the waters to get into the 3rd floor of the vessel. Now, all throughout yesterday, there's been conflicting reports as to what exactly the divers were able to do once they got into the vessel. Just to clarify things for our viewers, the divers did get into the vessel. They did reach the entrance of the 3rd floor of the vessel, but that was it. They were not able to get into the hallway or into the cabins at all. Now, 3 lift bags were also attached to the vessel to keep it afloat and prevent it from sinking further. 23 more will be attached today and in the coming days. Also, there's been an oil spill from the Seoul ferry. There's an oil ban right now of 1 kilometer around the accident site, and the Coast Guard has to deal with 2 things now, keeping the oil spill, containing the oil spill, and also continuing their efforts to rescue any potential victims down there. Guys?
Right. Now, the divers say they will try to break into the ship to retrieve the bodies that they discovered earlier today, but it's the weather conditions and the currents that would determine how successful this operation will be. How is the weather looking down there?
Well, the weather is actually working in favor for the Coast Guard here. The tides aren't that high, just as high as 1 meter. There's not much wind right now. They're blowing at about 6 to 9 meters per second. But it seems the rescue operation will have to speed up in the morning because the weather will turn for the worse in the afternoon. There will be strong tides. They will be going at about 10 kilometers per hour. And now the tides here at the Pyeongmokhang Harbor will be the calmest. There will be 3 times today when it will be the calmest. The next is at around 11:12 a.m. local time, and that is when all the Coast Guard here will be on full mode to continue their search and rescue operation. Guys?
Thank you, Leanne. Well, time certainly is at a premium. Thanks for the report. That was our Leanne reporting from the Pyeongmokhang Harbor, the focal point of the search and rescue operations.
Now, since the Seoul ferry sinking, families of the missing have been camping out at an indoor auditorium on Jindo Island to get their latest information on the rescue efforts firsthand.
Let's go over to our Gon So-ah, who is at the auditorium. So-ah, it must have been another rough and sleepless night for the families. They're filled with anger, sorrow and grief.
Right, it indeed was another restless night for the families of missing ones as they are awaiting even a small morsel of information about their loved ones, anything other than the unbearable silence they have now. Now, a couple of hours ago, it was very quiet in here as most of the family members were attempting to get some rest in the auditorium, in the halls, and some in their cars. stars. But now most of them are awake. And just a couple of minutes ago, a briefing has begun to take place. I'm seeing Choi Sang-hwan, the deputy head of the Korea Coast Guard, holding a briefing here at the auditorium. He's announcing the latest confirmations on the death toll and information on further rescue operations. I'll keep you updated on that later on.
Do so. Now, it must be really difficult for these families to just wait and wait. We hear that many of them have collapsed from despair. Now, families have been residing in this indoor auditorium or Pingmokang Harbor for 4 days now. How are they being looked after?
Well, lots of helping hands have been offered so far. On the day of the accident, around 2,000 volunteer workers arrived in Jingdo-gun County to provide the families with necessary supplies. Apart from food, water, medicine, blankets, and other daily equipment, therapists are there to give the families comfort. Now, ordinary people have also reached out, helping hand in the form of utensils, but also money. However, welfare services say instead of money, coming over to the site would be of more help.
Well, it's good to see the communities coming together to try and help the families down there. And there has been another sad twist in this already tragic tragedy that this time, not in the waters, but the vice principal of Danwon High School, which was the school which was on the ferry, so many students, he's believed to have killed himself. This has left many more people in complete shock.
We have learned that the vice principal left a handwritten suicide note in his wallet in which he wrote that it is hard to live on not knowing whether the 200 students are alive or not. This teacher-year-old added that he wishes his body be cremated and thrown into the site of the accident and said he hopes he can be the teacher of the dead students in their afterlife. The vice principal was found hanged from a tree on a hill behind the Jindo auditorium on Friday. He was on board when the ferry was sinking 2 days ago, and he was one of the few that were rescued. Guys?
Right. People close to him say that he was a really responsible person. Another sad note in this tragic incident. Our thoughts go out to his family as well. We appreciate it, Soa.
Now, once bodies are recovered or survivors found, they are brought to the Mokpo Hanguk Hospital located in Korea's southern Jeollanam-do province. And we're now going to cross live to our Ji Myung-gil at the hospital. Myung-gil.
Yes, Mark. Bodies from the Sewol ferry will be brought here to the Mokpo Hanguk Hospital where they'll be identified. Since Wednesday, among a total of 14 survivors, 12 are still receiving treatment. And this morning, an identified 22-year-old female body was sent back to Inha Hospital located in Incheon. She was the one who gave up her life vest to a student. Families of the missing here are anxiously waiting for news of their loved ones. Hope has been in the air since Friday as divers were able to reach inside the sunken ferry. Once the bodies are examined, they will be sent to Korea University Ansan Hospital located south of Seoul.
So, Myung-gil, there is still hope that survivors will be found. What is the hospital doing in order to prepare for the sudden arrival of rescued passengers or recovered bodies?
Yes, Jinju, hospital officials are doing a lot of things, and one of them is that they are preparing a lot of beds for the rescued survivors. And the medical team is on current standby, working day and night shifts. And several funeral rooms have been prepared for families that may have lost their loved ones through this tragic accident. The hospital has also set up a task force team to manage and identifying the bodies as quickly as possible. Jinju.
Yes, Myung-gil. So how are the families at the Mokpo Hospital coping with this situation? Are they now preparing for the worst, or do they still believe some good news is on the way?
Well, the families are still hoping that there'll be some good news. But as you can imagine, families are extremely upset and they have been waiting for days and nights for their loved ones to actually come back. There is a great sense of pain and sorrow within the waiting rooms of the hospital. And I have never felt so much sadness in one place. Although rescue efforts have continued throughout the night, it seems not much progress has been made. We'll keep you updated for any rescue passengers or recovered bodies arriving at the Mokpo Hospital. Back to you.
Now, as Myung-gil just told us, the retrieved bodies will be transported to different hospitals in Ansan, Gyeonggi-do Province, and possibly other local funeral halls as well.
Our Shin Se-min is at the Korea University Ansan Hospital. Se-min, what do you have for us?
Yes, as the day breaks, a lot of family members and friends have been coming in to say their last ones to the ones that returned in cold bodies. A lot of them actually stayed overnight to stay beside those ones and to spend the last minute with the loved ones. A total of 22 bodies have arrived here in Ansan, with 6 here located at the Korea University Ansan Hospital, and the mood here is one of unimaginable sorrow. The first coffin is in the process of being borne out at a nearby funeral hall, and it is that of a teacher who lost her life after helping students evacuate from the now sunken ferry. At around 4 a.m., some 6 hours ago, the body of the vice principal of Tanon High School, who committed suicide, arrived at a nearby funeral here in Ansan, and another body, that of a female high school student, also arrived at another funeral hall in Ansan after being identified. As you've mentioned, the deceased identified from Mokpo Korea Hospital are being transported, so many of the local hospitals and funeral halls are on full standby as additional dead bodies were found at the accident scene and are expected to be transported to one of these hospitals.
And our hearts go out to all of them, the families, the friends, and the entire city of Ansan in mourning now.
Right.
And a dark cloud is going to hang over the city for many years, decades to come. What about the patients being treated at the hospital? I believe that Korea University Ansan Hospital has the most number of patients being treated.
Yes, at this point, a total of 76 students and teachers are being admitted and are receiving medical treatments, not only at this hospital, but around the area. And the officials from the hospital specifically here have affirmed and asked all media to stay away from, to refrain from contacting any of the patients because they are going through a post-traumatic stress disorder. And the nearly 80% of the treated patients here are suffering from serious level of stress, while more than half are in seriously depressed state. Doctors at hospitals say that patients will need to be treated for at least 4 weeks at least, and if it takes and they're saying that it may even take up to a year depending on their seriousness of the issue. And I will have more on the news here updated, so back to you guys.
Right, we can't even imagine the sadness and desperation they're going through right now, and we hope that they will get well and getting the best medical attention possible. Now,
the cause of the accident is yet to be determined, and why the ship had suddenly changed direction, which might have caused its cargo and the loaded vehicles on board to suddenly shift, eventually leading to the vessel to lose balance, tilt, and eventually capsize.
but the tracking record of the critical minutes where the ship sailed in an abnormal manner is missing. Our Song Jae-san reports.
All ships are tracked from departure to arrival with a device that emits a signal every 6 seconds. It's called the Automatic Identification System, or AIS, as used for identifying and locating vessels. On the Sewol ferry, the system was working properly until 8:48 a.m., but by 8:52, the ship had turned 100 degrees and had sailed 400 meters. But the AIS was off for that 4 minutes, meaning the ship was damaged to a significant level that the electricity went off or the equipment stopped working. From that point, the ferry drifted north for over an hour until it came to a stop and eventually capsized. There's confusion about why the ship needed to change direction at the point it did.
The location is a turning point where the ship needs to start changing direction. We are looking into whether it was a normal change of direction or whether it changed direction due to an unusual circumstance.
But an official at the Oceans Ministry said there was no critical need to change direction, and the ship could have sailed on its regular route at that point. It's all down to the captain and the third navigator who was in charge of steering at the time to find out what really happened during those 4 minutes when the automatic tracking system stopped working. 송지선, ARIRANG News.
As the families of the dead and missing try and come to terms with this unimaginable horror of the situation, intense anger is being directed at the captain.
That's right. The parents are asking how a man with his responsibilities could have told their children to stay put while he himself jumped to safety from the sinking ship. Paulie reports on the mistakes that were made and what could have been done to save more lives.
This flight training exercise shows how cabin crews are supposed to direct passengers during an emergency situation. The detailed instructions include how to prepare for an emergency landing and a safe exit of the plane. It's all basic routine procedures for air travel, but it's also required on all maritime passenger vessels. According to the Korea Coast Guard, the captain is responsible for ordering crew members to conduct safety demonstrations for passengers and keep them informed. But acting Captain Lee Jun-seok of the Seoul-ho ferry failed to follow even these basic guidelines. Many of the survivors say they were rushed on board the vessel, receiving little or no safety training, such as learning how to put on a life jacket. The captain of the ship and some crew members also reportedly disobeyed maritime laws by abandoning the sinking ship, leaving hundreds of people to fend for themselves. But the mistakes don't end there. Testimony from survivors, text messages, and video have corroborated the fact that onboard announcements repeatedly asked passengers to stay put as the ferry was tilting before finally telling all the passengers to jump into the sea. Experts say the order to remain indoors goes against proper procedure in the event of a flooding.
If water has begun to enter and flood the ship, then you have to get to the highest possible ground. The highest place is the deck.
The lack of safety training, contradicting announcements, and absence of clear direction from the captain and crew may have caused a higher number of fatalities, as confused passengers searched for a way out with little time to escape. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
I'm Lee Ji-hyun with a check on the weather conditions in Jindo and around the country. Temperatures should be similar to yesterday in Jindo under mostly to partly cloudy skies, and there could be sporadic showers in the afternoon. But things will become worse as the day goes on. Winds are expected to get stronger. Gusty winds blowing at 8 to 12 meters per second later in the day. Waves will also get higher in the afternoon, reaching up at 2 meters high. And as far as the tides go, this is when the calmest tidal currents occur today, and flow velocity should decrease during these times. But again, strong gusty winds that are forecasted today will make things more difficult at the scene. And as for the other nation, expect to have mostly to partly cloudy day with highs remaining below 20 degrees Celsius across the nation, and the level of dust particles could be relatively high in the capital areas in the morning hours. Well, that's all the updates that I have for you at this hour.
Thank you, Gian, for that. And those are the latest updates we have on the ferry sinking at this hour. Stay tuned to ARIRANG as we will continue to bring you the latest on the search and rescue efforts.
A special edition of Korea Today is coming up at 11 a.m. Korea time with new developments on the tragic disaster. Our prayers are with the families of the missing and the deceased. Thank you for watching.